Entrepreneur, author, and financial consultant Mark Bernstein helps high-performing entrepreneurial business owners create a vision for the future and follow through on their goals and intentions. Ange Honorato is a business growth strategist who blends psychology and business together to create conscious leaders and business owners who impact the world. Founders Forum is a radio show podcast sharing the real stories behind entrepreneurship as founders discover more about themselves while providing valuable lessons and some fun and entertainment for you. Now, here's Mark and Ange.
Good morning, America. How are you? Ange, my thought about this morning is morning, because I realize that all of you listening, it may not be morning when you're listening to this podcast. But I'd like to think of it as morning anyway, because morning is a great time of day. I was really thinking about that. And in fact, I was kind of cataloging songs I've written. And one of the very first songs I wrote many, many years ago, that I didn't write the lyrics, I wrote the music, but my songwriting partner at the time, it was called Morning. And it starts out, morning comes just as it goes. You know, every day flows, starts morning, and then it goes, and then it comes, and then it goes. But I think of morning as a very positive time because it's almost like a time of rebirth, a time of, new opportunity, optimism. You know, every day is a new day kind of thing. What do you think about morning, Ange?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a rebirth. It's a opportunity to wipe the slate clean. And it's funny, I actually have a tattoo on my leg that says rebirth. But the funny part is I am typically not a morning person, as they say, right? There's morning and evening people. But in the last couple of years, I've really been striving to make myself, get up nice and early. And in fact, our guest today, and we'll talk a little bit about why this is, but so my very good friend, Emily Adams, is on with us today, and she is one of the most prominent morning people that I know. In fact, she's been someone that I have asked her to call me at 5 a.m. to make sure I'm up and get my workouts in. So, Emily, thanks for being here today. We'll introduce a little bit more about you.
Hey, Emily, could you do that every Wednesday when we have our show?
Yeah, we could use the accountability.
So we'll get her here on time. That would be great.
Yeah, that's true story. But we'll introduce Emily and her story in a minute. But Emily, why don't you weigh in a little bit on the morning stuff? I know you're up and ready to go every morning. What does morning mean to you?
Morning is a fresh start. Not that you need morning for a fresh start, but it's new, it's fresh, and getting up at 4:30 and starting my day and being able to just get up in the peace and the quiet, it's the best way to start your day. Yeah,
I'm learning and reaping the benefits of it. So thank you for kicking the corner of my bed, so to speak, and getting me up and moving. So
I'm a morning person like you, Emily. I prefer mornings. So what time do you go to bed? I'm curious if you wake up at 4:30.
Usually 8:39, but as most people who know me well, don't contact me after 8. I'm not answering your phone calls.
Another true story.
That's great. That's perfect. And that's what I need to do, because I would love to get up at that time, but I've got to start going to bed earlier. So I'm working on that. I like that. So Emily, tell us about what it is you're doing today as your career.
As a career, so I co-founded Transformative Leadership, and we're a consulting business that goes in primarily to manufacturing companies for cost savings, operation, and then also leadership development.
And Emily, before we get into the company and what you do, obviously, like anyone, we have to kind of start sort of at the beginning, right? And to really. You know me, I'm really big on the human behind the work. And you know that you have one of the most fascinating stories, as far as I'm concerned, that starts with jumping out of a 2-story window in the middle of the night at age 17. So tell us a little bit about that. What was the deal? What prompted it? And how have you used that tenacity to kind of jump in and really run your life and your work, what you're doing today? Because I love this story.
Yeah, thanks, Ange, for that. And I would say when I jumped out the window when I was at 17, I had no idea it would help me compete in powerlifting. It would help me be a single mom. It would help me build a business because it's literally jumping without no nets and just trusting that you're going to land where you're going to land, where you're meant to be at. And to give you a little bit of context why I jumped out of the a two-story house in the middle of the night. I was born and raised in the Amish culture and made the decision at 17 to leave and never look back. And for those who've watched the TV reality shows, not necessarily all of that is true. And the option I was given is if you leave, don't ever come back. And I jumped out in the two-story house in the middle of the night, never looked back. And that's kind of how one of my very first jobs was in automotive and was in manufacturing. And that's kind of how I started just kind of my career in automotive. Prior to that, just to give you a little context, the Amish do not go past the 8th grade, which is equivalent to a 6th grade education. So I left, went through a huge culture shock, and
to say the least.
Did you leave your family and everything behind as well, I guess, right?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
That's pretty brave, 17-year-old. It's amazing.
Yeah. So got my GED testing done, and I was a little shocked and disappointed it was a 6th grade education. So ended up getting my GED and then later graduated from Purdue. So it was a journey and a lot of learning along the way. But one of the things that I learned at a young age, and I still cling to, is entrepreneurship. My dad was huge into entrepreneurship, had multiple businesses. And it's not typical for the Amish girl to hang out with her dad, but I didn't listen to my mom. So my mom got frustrated and said, okay, now you need to go hang out with your dad. So therefore, I got to learn all the business stuff from him at a very early age. And then later, I use a lot of that still to this day in my business. So super grateful for that.
Wow. Did you have siblings?
Yes, I have 2 sisters and 3 brothers.
Where were you in the birth order?
I was middle child.
And you were the rebel.
I was.
She's
I was
the
definitely
textbook.
middle child.
The textbook.
I have to tell you, we don't usually do this, but we're watching you on Zoom because we're talking to you in Florida and we're in Philadelphia. But you just occur to me as a very happy person. Is that a fair way?
Thank you. That is a fair statement. And I will also say, for those that are out there looking for happiness, it's not something that you just find. Okay. You continue to work and cultivate it within yourself.
Yeah, it's that Mark and I were talking offline about the pursuit of self-leadership. And, we're kind of going backwards here in terms of the introduction. But, Emily and I met doing a lot of this personal work, right? So we've been on a journey the last year together in a number of different masterminds and personal, development retreats and things of that nature. And, Emily, you're the shining example of somebody that had probably every reason in the world to feel victimized, to feel, unsupported, to feel unhappy. And you have literally turned all of that into never an excuse, to a driving, motivating factor. So tell us a little bit about, I know your journey into powerlifting and how you parlay that into the work that you do and when things were tough. And then you said, you know what, I see what I can do as a manufacturing leader, but I need to do more. And I really love the fact that your organization that you've built now and founded is really a conscious company. So tell us a little bit about that and what are your intentions and what are you hoping to bring into this industry?
Yeah, so a little bit around the powerlifting. I actually got into powerlifting when I went through an abusive marriage and divorce, and I was like, I needed an outlet. And that was the outlet for me to be able to just like release and let go of things, and then realized I was strong. And then I started competing and then kind of got addicted to it, and then competed at a national level and hit everything I wanted. So it taught me how to stand in my power as a female. Because in automotive and the leadership roles I did have in automotive, it's like 3% female. And this was really challenging because I came from a culture that as a female, you didn't have a voice. And now I had no voice growing up. And now I had to learn how to have a voice in manufacturing where it was 3% female. So it really helped me learn to step into my own power. And along with that, the working out piece has always been something that's been in my routine. If I'm frustrated and I go work out, it's like my meditation. It's another version of meditation for me. And it's also helped me just in building the business. Whoever has built one knows the ups and downs you're going to face. And to remind myself that building a business is just like competing in powerlifting. There's, the ups and the downs, and you just fall in love with the journey. And that has really drove both me and my business partner to ask ourselves, like, what kind of impact do we want to leave on the world? And really the impact that we want to leave is we want to bring in the consciousness, whether it's through cost savings or through leadership development, into organizations. Because if you can be a conscious leader, you know how everything else kind of shifts. And once you learn how to truly lead yourself, your team will follow like really easy. There's no work after that, but you have to show up as a leader first.
By the way, a minute or two ago, you said you realized you were strong, and I think you meant physically when you started powerlifting. But I think it sounds like you also realized you were strong emotionally and I imagine spiritually as well at the same time. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that is a fair statement. I would say when I started powerlifting physically, I knew I was strong. And then as I competed, I realized I could tap in mentally. And if I visualized my lifts before the competition, I would hit them every single time.
Yeah.
And so when I competed at a national level, I actually had someone pick my numbers for me. I didn't even know what was on the bar. And that's how I competed at nationals and hit the total I wanted. So then I realized, yeah, the mental strength, but I would say probably within the last year and a half has been the spiritual strength has really, really kicked in for me. And it's been something I've been focusing on a lot. And I always say mind, body, and soul all have to be, they're all connected. And so each piece of those need to be at the same strength or you're not balanced.
Absolutely. I just want to tell you this. We haven't finished the show yet, but you're like my favorite person we've had on so far because there's just so much great energy coming across. It's just really a great experience.
Imagine what she's going to do with the business and bringing that into organization. So,
and I mean that as no disrespect to anyone else. We've had a lot of great guests, but this is
she's a morning person, and she's
a morning person. That's right.
We're in the morning. Right. Yeah. Well, good. Well, you know what? I think we're about ready to take a break in just a minute, but I think that's a great way. When we come back, why don't we dive a little bit further into the business now, Emily, and where you're seeing it going? And I know Mark and I have a lot of questions for you, and loved your thought leadership in terms of where you think things are headed. So we'll be right back in a minute.
Establishing a self-directed Roth IRA or other self-directed retirement plan offers access to investment options usually only available to well-connected or wealthy individuals. Anyone can build wealth and achieve tax-free income for life and financial freedom without the inordinate risk of speculative investing, securities trading, exotic financial instruments, or hoping for the best from the stock market. Since their start in 2003, Camaplan has come to be synonymous with expertise, flexibility, responsiveness, and diversity in investment choices. They provide innovative investment opportunities for investors seeking direct control and more choices in how they deploy their investment capital. Camaplan doesn't just make it possible to invest in alternative assets, they also teach investors how to put their money to work. Take the road to financial freedom today. Go to camaplan.com/IRA.
And we are back at Founders Forum with a very interesting guest that we have today, Emily Adams, coming to us from Florida. And let's talk a little bit about, well, first of all, I'll let Ange take this, but I'd be interested to hear about where you think the state of manufacturing is, particularly in the United States right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Just before the break, we were talking about the business, transformational leadership, and where you guys are headed right now, and how you're expanding that team, and some of the partnerships, and some of the interesting use of new technology. So tell us a little bit about that, Emily, and then we can kind of talk about your thoughts about where things are headed.
Yeah, so super, super excited in the partnerships that we have made. And one of the partnerships we've made, and I can now legally say this, is cutting edge AI. So they're a AI technology, and they can basically, if we are looking at it from a manufacturing aspect, they can hook into like all different kinds of cameras and detect certain things, almost like so precise, like it can be programmed to detect whatever you need to detect, even down to the person wearing their earplugs or not. So we're super excited to be really partnering with them, because I feel like in a manufacturing side of things, especially production lines, because that's really kind of my expertise is production lines. It brings so much value to be able to have that technology and to be able to now tap into the AI side of things and just see how far it's come. And I think that's one of the things that companies are going to have to start looking at is how is AI supporting them and how can they implement that in their process.
Yeah, it's going to be life changing, as we know. But I love at least what you're talking about now. It's, I think there's that immediate fear that everything's going to become robotic and every job is going to be replaced. And, really particularly a lot of the, the unskilled and the hourly manual type of work. But it'll be really interesting, I think, what you're describing is it sounds like they're trying to blend the technology with the humans and how that's going to work. So, are you seeing, I'm assuming you're getting a lot of interest now in the market, from this.
Yeah, we are. And there's a lot of different, it's not just in manufacturing either. There's a lot of different companies now investing in this technology. And one of the things, just talking to the CEO of this, of Cutting Edge AI, it's interesting because it's not taking away the human aspect, but it's helping in a sense of like, you're still going to have someone manage, these, because everything's kind of ran into a database. You have all these alerts. So you're going to tie those alerts to, a KPI or whatever team you want to tie it in. It's just going to help you with your performance. It's not necessarily like removing all of your headcounts, but it's definitely going to help you with your performance and being able to solve your problems quicker instead of not knowing exactly where your root cause is. You'll be able to capture it.
As an aside, people have this fear of AI. And it came out for me because I'm a big music guy and I'm a big fan of the Beatles. And you might have heard that they're coming out with their final last record this year with the use of AI. And there was this, people were angry about it because they were saying, this is not the Beatles. You're going to recreate John Lennon's voice. You can't do that. And really all they were using AI for is something they've been doing for a while, is removing all the external noises so they could get from this little cassette recording of his voice a pure voice to add on to it to make the quality of the sound better. But it's really interesting how afraid people were and upset, and they've actually had to come out with all these statements. Paul McCartney had to like clarify it and all that. And I think I would suspect I do want to get back to manufacturing because I work with a lot of manufacturers. I was thinking with the Manufacturers Forward Focus Forum. And I could see that people being afraid of the use of AI and like you said, it's not replacing people. It's not going to be all robots, but I could see that fear of AI and how it's going to be used. Do you think it seems to me that there's a resurgence in in manufacturing industries in America? And first of all, do you see it that way? And secondly, do you see that AI will help kind of accelerate that?
Yeah, so I do feel like AI will help accelerate that, but I also feel like for companies that are looking to bring the AI in, it's going to take education and a culture shift.
Right.
So, and I think that's one of the biggest pushbacks. If you have not done your research or your knowledge, you don't know what AI is. Before partnering with this company, I had zero knowledge of what AI's capability was. And I didn't really care to learn until I figured out, oh, this links perfectly in the manufacturing world. So with keeping manufacturing here in the US, it's also going to challenge us to look deeper in the processes to really clean up all the waste and get into more of a lean manufacturing mindset all the way across the board.
I was just going to say this is like lean 2.9
Yes.
or something like that.
It's probably what lean, when it was first created, 40, 50 years ago, could have possibly foreseen, like, this is what lean manufacturing was kind of built for. But, it's also interesting because, my passion in all of this is, as Emily knows very well, is again, on that human side. So I think what you're also bringing up is, leaders and companies in the last just few years, they've had to deal with economic pressures. We've had to deal with how do you handle your employees because of COVID, leaving the office, coming back to the office. Now, before we've even got our feet back on the ground with any of those concepts, now we're having to deal with people or companies and helping the mindset and the cultural shift around the fear that AI is going to replace them, right? So there's so much that I don't think companies can possibly keep up right now with all of the change that's coming, inside organizations. So it's really interesting to hear a positive view of AI, because I think there is a lot of negativity around it too.
Emily, so as you look forward, well, let me back up for a second. What happened in obviously your personal event, jumping out of the window, starting with that, has had an influence on your ability to be successful. That might have been a transformational event. I'm curious to know, have you had failures that you've learned from? And could you give an example of one?
Yes, I have had plenty of those. I always say they're not failures, though, as long as you learn from them.
Correct.
So I've learned from a lot of them. Some of them I had to relearn. So some examples of failures, I have started multiple businesses because it's what I was good at. It wasn't what my heart and soul or lit me up, right? I was just really good at it. And an example of this is coaching small business owners. I can look at a business and tell you exactly where your gaps are and tell you how to fix it. I can help you with your money mindset. Like, I'm really, really good at those things. Mm-hmm. But my heart and soul was not in it. And so having to see that I built this business and then now it's not like resonating with me anymore. And now I need to pivot. And I always go back now to making business decisions, not out of my head, but out of my heart. And I know that's not a norm. That's not something we hear a lot about, but that's the only way that I operate. And it's also the only way that we now operate our business, because that's what we're both in alignment with.
Well, probably be fair to say you need the head and the heart, but you already have the head component. So you needed to focus more on the heart. Would that be a fair way to say it?
Absolutely. You do need both, and you need to also understand when you're in your head and when you're in your heart as well.
And I like what you said. It's, failures are not failures. They're really lessons, or they're pivots, like you said too. I mean, it's, and you're not really, it's not a failure. It's just time to pivot when something like that happens. If you looked out, I love this question of 3-year vision, which is, if this were 3 years from today and we were talking again, and you look back over the last 3 years, what would have to happen in your life, business-wise, personally, and any other category you want, for you to feel that was a successful 3-year period in your life? What would that look like?
What that would look like would be hiring probably another 50 people, in our revenue quadrupling. So I think, and then also the impact that we've made. So the business is impacted. We would want to see, 500 to 2,000 businesses impacted.
How many employees do you have today when you say add another 50?
It's just me and my business partner at the
Gotcha.
moment.
Okay. That's a big vision. That's great. I love it. What challenges do you see ahead of you? And what opportunity, wherever there's challenges, there are opportunities. What challenges are you facing? What opportunities do you see there? And what strengths have you built that will help you overcome those challenges?
Challenges, credibility. And I know that I'm really great at what I do, but a lot of times I have a hard time being able to sell that vision to someone that I want to maybe work with. And being able to overcome that, I have done a lot of inner work on really understanding my worth and my value. And I think moving forward, I will continue to have to do that as I step into different spaces that I'm maybe not as comfortable with. So it's continuing to push out of my comfort zone and living in the discomforts, because that's where I find the most growth for myself.
That is some powerful thinking there. And you occur to me as a pretty young person. I'm not going to ask how old you are, but you seem, maybe because of your experiences, that you've traveled a long way in a relatively short period of time, is what it occurs to me.
The definition of compressing time frames, which is something we're pretty accustomed to in our world, right, Emily?
Yes, thank you. Yes, yes.
Emily, do you have a favorite book?
My favorite book at this time would be The Seven Spiritual Laws of Success.
Ah, I love that book.
Yeah. And there's one more book though that I think is near and dear to your heart, which is
Oh, I am an author. I am an author
she
from Choice
forgets
to
that.
Change.
Yeah.
What's the name of it, the book?
From Choice to
From
Change.
Choice to Change. I like that.
Yes, go pick it up. It's a fascinating book. It's about her journey, and I think everybody needs to read it. It's going to be a bestseller. I'm telling you, Emily, because it embodies everything that you're living and sharing with us today.
Thank you.
Emily, if you could speak to your younger self, what advice would you give you?
Don't be afraid of failure.
Excellent. Do you have a favorite song or favorite musical group?
My favorite song is Holds Me Back by KB.
Really?
It is my go-to song.
Ooh, I don't know that
Yeah,
one.
that's an Emily song. You'll look it up. You'll see why, Mark. Strong and powerful, just like she is. Well, Emily, again, this has been amazing. You're an incredible colleague, friend, professional, and I think I know our listeners and Mark and I are both very excited that you're able to join us today. I think your message about where things are headed is incredibly innovative, and you're steps ahead. And I just know that the business is going to take off and really be impactful.
And
Thank you.
You have there's a lot more that you could talk about, so we might want to talk about having you back another time.
Yeah, we're really big into part twos lately. Yeah.
So I think we need an Emily Adams part 2. Well,
I'm
listen.
down for a part 2.
Excellent. Let's do it. So everybody, thanks for being here today on Founders Forum, and we look forward to visiting with you again next week.